Daniel Jones was the other wonderful human in Savage Garden. And, it seemed like you were having a great time, you were touring, and then all things came to a halt. And, you were called in for a meeting. You knew something was wrong. You almost, I think you say, that you had the similar feeling within your stomach that you had, back in the days of being abused by your dad, knowing that something was not right.
Hmm.
And then you found out that he wanted to leave. How was that for you? And do you still have a relationship with him now?
No, and when you read the book, you'll understand why. Um, I haven't had a relationship with him really since he left the band.
Mm.
I think for a few years, um, we tried to, and it's only because legacy is so important to me. I use the example of Fleetwood Mac,
Mm.
or maybe Oasis is probably a better example. But I was a huge Fleetwood Mac fan, and I hated to know that Stevie and Lindsay didn't get along because it ruined the fantasy
Mm.
and it taints the songs. And I still, to this day, feel very protective of the fan experience and fans' memories of Savage Garden. And I think for the first few years or so, um, I think I even let his band support me. But our falling out was entirely due to the fact that he told the world that the band Breakup was the first he'd ever heard of it,
Mm.
which was not true. And then he never corrected that. He eventually did, maybe a decade later, but it was a decade too late.
Mm.
And I really suffered. It was a huge personal betrayal for me.
Mm.
And, I speak about it in the book as politely as I possibly can because for the longest time, again, I think I just kept expecting him to one day just sit down and just say the truth. Um, and there are lots of reasons, I think, why in the very, very beginning he didn't, which I gave him a pass for at the time. But, 3 or 4 years later, when I was still being blamed for the band
Mm.
breaking up, um, I realized that I didn't want to have to keep pretending to be close to somebody who had not been very kind to me,
Mm.
is the truth.
Mm.
And we don't have a relationship at all, um, because of that.
Mm. Do
Yeah.
you, as you know, I've just finished writing a book, and from a legality perspective, because I remember they're like, you have to show the people that you write about in the book if you want. But I suppose if it's the truth too, like it's not, you know, do you have to show him what you write about? Or is that because it's the truth, so be it? It's just a story that you're telling.
I don't think I've said anything that hasn't been in the news or in the media
Yeah.
or whatever. And I'm just talking about my feelings about it.
Yes.
Um, but I certainly had a legal team,
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
over the book and make sure that um, there's nothing litigious about it. But even that, like the fact that one would have to be afraid of just telling the truth, which was that he left,
Yeah.
is so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like I really had to, for a long, long time, had to perhaps from my own, maybe it's my own choosing, because I was polite or kept expecting him to correct the record. But for a very long time, I just kind of was lumped with that. And then eventually in interviews, I just started saying what really happened. And then eventually in interviews, he started saying, oh yeah, it was his decision to leave the band. But it would have made my life so much easier if, you know, at the time he would have, you know, corrected what was printed. I'll just put it like that, you know. Yeah.
One thing that you speak about quite a lot in the book is, and you've mentioned it in this interview, is, you know, being gay and how it seemed that everyone knew you were gay before you knew you were gay.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is what it is. But it wasn't an easy time in the 80s and in Queensland, growing up being gay. And you had it from your dad from when you were really young. There was a story where he saw you kissing a boy and then he was disgusting and went and ended up telling all his friends and they were humiliating you. To, you know, you actually got married to a woman who actually sounds phenomenal and so sweet. And, you know, even when you told her you were gay, she still wanted to be with you, thinking that you could
amazing.
work through it. She sounds so, I feel like you have some amazing women in your life.
Oh,
some really beautiful
totally
women.
She's still in my life. She's an incredible human being. Yeah.
And then you obviously were married and you are divorced now, and you say that, you know, that was a very hard time for you, and you know, the dissolving of your relationship with your former husband, you know, led you to, at the time, potentially wanting to take your life, which is a theme again that's in the book quite a lot. I wonder for you, how has the journey of coming out been, and what advice could you give to someone who might be going through a similar situation?
Oh gosh, my journey was horrific. It really was, and it needn't have been. I think partially, as you said, it's time contextual. So, you know, it was the 1980s. We were being bombarded with a lot of fear because of HIV and its emergence. And I think if anyone young is listening to this, imagine COVID, but it's gay and it's sexually transmitted. And I believe there's been a resurgence, I think, of that kind of, especially in America, that sort of intolerance of anything other than just white bread. You know, I think that this extremism in terms of the way trans people are treated, and this fear of anything not just heterosexual has risen again. So I think a lot of young people are very familiar with the temperature maybe that could have existed back then in the 80s, but being gay was definitely not something that was accepted by society. I mean, it had only been decriminalized, I think, in the mid-70s. And I thought, I didn't know anybody who was gay. I mean, probably a third of the boys I knew at school were gay. I didn't know. All I knew was that people who were famous and gay were dying of this terrifyingly mysterious cancer, was what it was described as. And any lingering, harmless, potentially what should have been an exciting, like amazing period in my life of like, oh my God, I have crushes on boys or whatever, was just stomped down with fear. I was praying to God, please don't make me gay. I thought every time that TV ad came on, the Grim Reaper TV ad came on, I thought everyone in the living room was just looking at me, knowing that I was gay because I had a crush on a kid at school. You know, I thought people could read my mind. Remember, I thought I was a mind reader. I thought I could tell every time my dad was going to, you know, burst out into a violent episode. But then, you know, something wonderful kind of happened in that. I don't know, I am deeply romantic. And there wasn't Will and Grace. There was no such thing as a gay BFF, right? So I mistook my my closeness with women as being like, oh my God, we're in love. Like, and I was as close to the two women that I had relationships with before, well, one girl and then Colby, who I married. And I thought that was just, that's exactly what it is. Just every now and then I would have fantasies about men. And I thought, no one else is talking about this. So maybe we all have these feelings, but we just don't talk about it. And I didn't, it's so interesting. I didn't want to leave either. I talk about this in the book, you know, she was incredibly strong. By the time it was obvious that it was affecting my mental health, Colby was the person to say, like, you actually have to leave. Like, I want you to live your life. I want you to be free. And oh my God, I just did not want to be gay. I was just like, it was like starting off again. I had so much internalized homophobia, even about myself. I hated myself. I probably hated other gay men. And when I look back and think about just how flamboyant I was and just every part of me that was, just, I thought was hidden. Now I know why everyone thought I was gay. Just watch me on Hey Hey It's Saturday. You know? Because it was just desperately trying to come out through my clothes and my fashion and just whatever. And, you know, it was a very, very difficult struggle. But my advice to someone today would just be to tell just one person who you feel comfortable, who you feel you can trust, and to know that, to link it back to me being bullied, the thing that made me a target was what was extraordinary about me. That's what was extraordinary about me. If I had a child and they were being bullied the way that I was, I would say to them, oh, you don't even realize it. You're being bullied because you're extraordinary. You're so rare. You're so different. You're so unique. Like all this peer pressure at school, it's all designed to just make you keep your head underneath the crowd and not stick out. But later on in life, sticking out is the thing that makes you extraordinary and rare.